This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish, in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Saturday, 8 August, Year of our Lord 2026. I think we may have to add to that open. My task and purpose is to save my country. The reason we started with Joe Allen back in, 2020, 2021, 5-6 years ago, making him editor for all things transhumanism, then come out with the book Dark A, and of course all his amazing stories. And he's been now covered by CNN, everywhere he's out with all these big shots on the West Coast this weekend, talking because they want to hear what he has to say, particularly given his understanding of going around the country and explaining artificial intelligence at every small church and town hall, etc. It's pretty amazing. Mark Beall, I want to give you plenty of runway because, folks, everything we've warned about, and we need action, and we need action today on this. It's just not going to be good enough anymore because we are in this, as I said, I gave you an interview the other day. This is not a commercial situation anymore. This is a national security situation. When I said about it, I give you another task and purpose to save your country. On your shoulders, I think, is to save our species. And I don't say that lightly and not trying to stroke your ego. This is what the reason we said transhumanism years ago with Joe, because remember, we took the top 5 or 6 things out of the Made in China 2025, quantum computing, advanced chip design, CRISPR, and gene splicing, regenerative robotics, and at the top of that was artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. And now they're telling Axios, the CEOs, that on that lane that is artificial intelligence, they believe they're entering the first stages of the Singularity. So, Mark, you were just about to explain what that means and how. So take number 2 principles out and write this one down because you're going to hear a lot more about it. And yes, it is going to change your life. And unfortunately, unless we get a grip on it, it may end your life. Mark Beall, what do you got?
I know there's this temptation that some of this sounds scary and sci-fi like, and unfortunately, this is the world we now find ourselves in. And the critical issue is that we don't understand what happens once they let off this process, the companies let off this process called recursive self-improvement. This RSI, as it's known, is when an AI model builds the next version of itself. And there could be some constraints and some ways that this doesn't go in basically an explosion. But some people are thinking that this could be like a nuclear chain reaction, the endpoint at which we simply do not know. And that is creating a lot of anxiety among the companies in the labs themselves. And remember, what you need to be really good at AI research, you need good research taste, you need to be really good at math, and you need to be really good at coding. And just last week, one of the OpenAI models cracked 10 open problems in advanced mathematics and frontier computer science that had been, stumping humans now for decades. 4 of those problems were considered Fields Medal worthy breakthroughs. And that's why the singularity discussion is now on the table. If an AI can do this well at math, this well at software engineering, and it can do AI research in a superhuman way, it's going to be able to take control, almost like digital gain of function. So, like in biology, when researchers increase the lethality or transmissibility of these viruses, that's called gain of function research. Well, in a similar way, we have digital gain of function research going on right now with this RSI process, recursive self-improvement. And the government's flying blind. It has no clue what's going on with this. As far as I can tell, they're not talking publicly about their understanding of their assessment of these threats. And right now, the only thing we have is this private voluntary agreement where some companies is telling the government some information we don't really know yet. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to be, this is here now. It's obviously going to be an increasingly important political issue. I think Republicans got to be leaders in this. Otherwise, we're going to get destroyed on the campaign trail. And the Democrats are going to put this on our lap that we dropped the ball when we were in charge here. So President Trump's leadership is needed now, perhaps more than ever.
I want to connect some dots. I want to go back to the 1,300 employees and the recursive self-improvement. This is where artificial intelligence is writing its own code to improve itself, right? This is how you get to artificial general intelligence. The 1,300 people from the companies it's a cry for help. They're saying, you got to help us out here because we can take away the competitive nature inside these companies where they're looking the other way as far as safety protocols go. Correct, Mark Beall?
That's right. What people don't realize is like the amount of economic pressure that these companies are under, whether it's regard to their public offerings, their quest to buy ever more powerful and more computer chips, the race for market share. These are existential questions for these companies, and it's pushing them to go faster and faster and faster. And as a result, safety is taking a back seat. This is a market failure. This is a need for coordination. This is why we have a government. This is why we don't believe we're not anarchists. We understand that there's sometimes a need for a federal government to do certain functions. And this is what those companies are saying right now. And this is even more complex because obviously the Chinese are right behind us and right on our heels. And so there's one voice that says, well, if we slow down ourselves and the Chinese don't, then they're just going to overtake us. And that can't happen either. We have to walk and chew gum. We have to both get our arms around how we pace this technology so we can build it responsibly, and we have to make sure China is suppressed long enough for us to figure out some of these big safety pieces. Right now, if there's one thing,
the suppression of China, we're the leaders of the anti-CCP movement. We have an answer. Nobody goes to university in this country. You get all the Chinese nationals out of the lab. You cut off 100% of the equity, 100% of the debt. You take away the entire ecosystem, and most importantly, you 1,000% restrict any ability of them to get the most advanced chips, including the black market where we're looking the other way. This is so phony because it's only an issue because the oligarchs continue to profit off creating a thriving artificial intelligence ecosystem with the Chinese Communist Party. Mark, am I wrong in that?
You're not. I mean, right now, thank God the Senate version of the National Defense Authorization Act has 3 critical bills in this regard. Senator Cotton's Chip Security Act, Senator Banks's AI Overwatch Act, and Senator Ricketts's Match Act. And those 3 things taken together. So the Chip Security Act counters the smuggling that they're doing to get our ships over there so they can build their own capabilities. Overwatch ensures congressional oversight on decisions related to who gets to buy these powerful chips. And the Match Act tries to cut off China's ability to buy the semiconductor manufacturing equipment so that China can't make these chips domestically. Well, right now, that's being held up in the House by Republican leadership, and they need to hear from the posse. They need to understand that the House needs to support these 3 provisions in the NDAA so that the president has the tools he needs to keep China off of this very powerful technology and give us the time and space that we need to figure out this safety question.
Okay, we had all the major gubernatorial candidates on the Republican side, all 4 of them on, and all of them swore that, hey, data centers ain't coming to, and hyperscale data centers, we're going to stop, all of them. Yet the oligarchs continue to pump money into Florida. I want to play a clip, and I'm going to bring Mark Beall in about data centers and being on the right side of this for the country and on the simple politics of it. Let's go ahead and let it rip.
Back from the northern tip of Utah, near the Idaho border, which is sort of ground zero now in this national debate. And it's all because of this audacious proposal from a celebrity investor. Originally, he wanted to develop a piece of land twice the size of Manhattan. It's now been scaled back to only the size of Manhattan into what would be basically one of the world's biggest data centers. But he never quite predicted the backlash he'd see.
At the northernmost edge of Utah, miles from anywhere, sits a vast no man's land. An unspoiled expanse in Box Elder County, which could soon be the site of one of the biggest data centers on the planet. It's ignited outrage across Utah, the community concerned about their already scarce resources and furious about a lack of transparency in government.
It's not real information, and we sit here like it's okay.
Some career politicians have already been toppled, and all before a single piece of dirt has been moved.
So we're going to go straight west, and then we'll veer southwest.
We wanted to understand the debate over the proposal in Utah's Hansel Valley, so we met up with Dr. Robert Davies. A physicist and a professor at Utah State University, he's emerged as one of the leading critics of something called Project Stratos.
As proposed, this particular project would utterly transform this entire landscape.
The original proposal, approved with no public comment by a little-known state agency in May, would develop 3 chunks of land totaling 40,000 acres at the northern tip of the Great Salt Lake. That's the size of more than 2 Manhattans. After public outrage, project developers cut the plan in half. But Davey says the scope, up to 9 gigawatts, is still impossible even to fathom.
And that's going to use 9 billion watts of power. That's the energy consumption rate of 40,000 Walmart supercenters. We could be talking about 10 or 12 degrees of Fahrenheit temperature change across this.
Okay, I want to play. We're going to play that on our over the weekend, so you see it all. It's pretty amazing. But it is, I talked to the team up in Michigan. The number one thing up there is data centers. What Abbott's done in Texas, approving all these, is now getting blowback. He's kind of put a moratorium, so it'll all be analysis. In the governor's race on the Republican primary, Mark Beall, number one issue, data centers. Where do we stand with this, particularly given a Republican perspective? If we cede this issue to the left, we're going to get blown out everywhere, right? I'd even make an argument that even Andy Ogles, although that was about environmental, these billionaires coming in from San Francisco, you got to be at the forefront of data centers. The American people are just not going to have their electricity go up. They don't care about the lives of the oligarchs. The aquifers and the rivers drained, and also these things sitting there humming in these agricultural communities. Mark Beall, your thoughts?
This is a tough issue. They didn't want any rules of the road on AI for so long, and there's there's limited trust between the public and this industry. And now this industry is sort of ham-fistedly walking around local communities trying to build these big data centers and not doing the normal local engagement. I mean, on one version of this story, Steve, is, these are billions of dollars flowing into local communities, like places like Georgia. Rural healthcare is a really big, important issue for Georgia. The governor could, if he had the support, could probably get a decent amount of that money coming from the data centers into healthcare for those citizens. And there's a win-win situation to be had here, but the negotiations and the methods of this industry have been so ham-fisted that now there's this gigantic public backlash. And of course, there is legitimate evidence that China and Russia propaganda are behind some of this sentiment. But just like we know with the Soviet Union, these guys can't make up an issue out of whole cloth. These foreign influence operations, they always seize on a real issue that Americans actually care about, and this is an issue that they actually are going to care about. And if we don't get the guardrails right, and we do this, and we see this in the polling, like when you have guardrails on AI, support for data center goes up by like 19% in the polling. So there is a path out of the woods here, because in some real respects, under President Trump's leadership, we are reindustrializing the United States and preparing for the 21st century. And this is some of the infrastructure that we're going to need. But we can't be stupid about how we're going about it. And part of that equation has to be getting our arms around these AI guardrails so that the public can have confidence that the government's doing.
But look, the trust has been broken. The trust is not by the American people that got broken. The trust is the oligarchs. You can't trust them. They're trying to buy Washington. See, this. Exactly. You fight it every day. So that's why I call for a moratorium until we can get the real facts. I don't trust anything these oligarchs say, because they're all pathological liars. Mark, where do they go for AI Policy Network, the site, your social media, all of it? Where do people go?
I'm at Mark Beall on X, and theaipn.org is our website. You can join the movement. You can participate in our engagement with elected officials to try to help them navigate these issues. At the end of the day, we are demanding strong guardrails on security level threats, and we want to help the president be successful in this, and you can join the movement at that website.
Beall, you are doing the Lord's work. Hope you understand that. Burned into your soul. You're doing the Lord's work right here. Nothing could be more important. Mark Beall, AI Policy Network. Thank you on a Saturday morning for joining us. Okay, Make America healthy again. Tony Lyons is with us. Short break.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Make America healthy again. Man, what a week we had for this with Fauci, all of it. I've asked Tony Lyons to join us. Can you give us a summary of this week from the Maha perspective? Particularly, we finally held in contempt of Anthony Fauci. Let me give people a heads up. The Senate voted in contempt. Other people, Navarre and I went to prison for it. Don't think this is a layup because you got New York, you got a D.C. grand jury, D.C. judges. That place over D.C., that federal court is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Sent 2 folks with misdemeanors to a federal prison. I think in Danbury, been around over 100 years. I don't think they'd ever had a misdemeanor. The prison's built, I think, for 800 people. It's got 1,200 in there. I mean, these things are jammed. They're just absolutely crammed with bodies and felons, and they don't have room. I mean, misdemeanors. The guy that ran the D.C. court, one of the guys that have been there 50 years, about to retire, said, Mr. Bannon, in my entire time running this court, the logistics of it, one of the operations guys says, I don't ever remember having a misdemeanor tried. We'll see what happens with Dr. Fauci, a mass murderer. Tony Lyons, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. You guys go to jail for 4 months for doing absolutely nothing. And then here's a guy, Dr. Fauci, who has done something, and he basically has admitted to it in his journals, in his diary, in his personal emails, in his texts, that he knew what was going on. And the steps that he took and the mistakes that he made resulted in millions of deaths. And then he came and he made just a mockery of the Congress of this country, where he goes in there and he refuses to answer anything. So, how is it any different than him not showing up? He goes in there and he won't tell the American people the color of his tie. He won't admit to anything that he's done wrong. And so, Rand Paul has been working day and night for months and months and months to hold him accountable. And I think that what was accomplished this week was really epic because everybody in the country saw who Dr. Fauci really is. That he's this human being who is focused on his own fame, on his own glory. In his journals, when thousands of people are dying, he's talking about how many TV shows he went on, about how powerful he is, about the friends that he has. So it's just an outrage. And, so Senator Rand Paul, has been working to bring him to justice. And what he's accomplished is he got the truth out. And we won't fund this kind of research anymore because it's too public now. So we can't let anybody do this kind of thing in this country ever again. They can't force people to vaccinate, force people to to wear masks, prevent people from going to work, from going to church, from seeing their loved ones in hospitals. So Dr. Fauci lied day after day to the American public. And he was able to successfully kind of control what millions of people thought, what they ate, what they did, what they put into their bodies, what they believed, how they worshiped. So, just incredible power given to this terrible villain. And now everybody has seen that. And some people don't recognize what they've seen. And Dana Bash, gets on CNN with Bobby Kennedy, and she says, the things that Bobby Kennedy did resulted in people dying. That vaccines really are just always safe and effective, that a whole class of pharmaceutical products, the most criminal organizations in the history of the world, that they're just always safe. And we're supposed to believe that. But, look at what Dana Bash actually said. She said they're the most tested products of any products in the history of mankind. Now, if that's true, she's on CNN. She's an anchor on CNN. Why not just post all of those incredible studies on CNN.com? But she didn't do that because they don't exist. So she's there, like Dr. Fauci, lying to the American public, vilifying Bobby Kennedy. And what is Bobby Kennedy doing? I've said this before, but it's so clear. he's not looking to get more famous. He's not looking for more power. He didn't make more money. You know, the real Anthony Fauci sold 1.4 million copies. He didn't earn a penny on that. He donated everything. He assigned the contract to Children's Health Defense because he believed in the great work that they do. So, you know, so much of what people believe is just a lie. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing the bold, sweeping, decisive actions of an administration that has a lot of work to do and has a lot of people trying to hold them back, and a deep state that's dedicated to protecting, you know, big oligarchs, big corporations that are making billions of dollars at our expense. But the progress, the cultural progress, is just unprecedented, because we've seen that everybody in America, their ideas are changing. The way they view food, pesticides, vaccines, drugs, they are changing. And the realization that people are having that we live in a country where you can commit such horrible criminal acts and actually get away with it. And we know that has to stop. But we've changed the way millions of people eat. We've changed the way people think about vaccines, about the way people think about the drugs that they're giving to their children. And that's just an epic victory that's happened in a year and a half. And there's a lot of time left. There's a lot more baseball to be played. And I think we can really win, that this can be just historic change.
I saw where the where now Bobby's going to be included. The head of Axios had a story about how this convention or whatever this thing is still kind of be determined, whether it's a fundraiser or actually going to be a convention. Bobby's going to be a key part of that, because now they know Maha, as we've been hammering, hello, we won in a coalition, one that we helped build and supported for years, Make America Healthy Again. Food is medicine. Right now, what actions do we have to take, and what actions did the administration have to take? Because I know President Trump supports this 100%, but what action do you believe has to be taken now to energize that amazing Maha base to join with us and to start the canvassing and the door knocking, you know, after Labor Day, that drive to November 3rd? What is Tony Lyons, the head of Maha Inc., believe has to happen?
I think it's happening every day, but we need to really go hard on removing all mandates. There can't be any medical mandates in this country. We need total medical freedom. We know that these companies have been out to get us, that they've been engineering food to make us addicted to it. They've been telling us that real food, that meat, fish, eggs, whole milk, that those things are dangerous, and that, you know, ultra processed food, those are safe. So we've been lied to at such an epic level. We were told that these pharmaceutical products are the best thing for our children. And, you know, we need to come down really hard and be the party, be the politicians, be the activists who are supporting protecting children. And that we've seen that the Democratic Party has failed the American public, and that they have done it because they took money from these companies. And they have forgotten that they have an obligation to the American public, and that this obligation is to watch these companies carefully and to not allow these oligarchs to control us and to poison us and to lie to us. And if that can get through, the polling shows just overwhelmingly that almost everybody in this country believes that we deserve to have healthier food in schools. We deserve to have healthier food in hospitals. We deserve to have medical schools that teach people about nutrition, because everybody knows that it's simple how you get healthier. It's really simple. You eat better, you work out more, you avoid pharmaceutical products. You don't trust the censorship and the propaganda and the lies that are trying to make you hungry and addicted and sick. And you take care of yourself. You get out into the sun. You question authority, and you follow alternative therapies, and you look at all of the different options. And so, you look at what's happened in all kinds of areas. I mean, look at the 3 books. Look at these 3 books that came out. There's Dr. Fauci's own book called On Call. This book sold less than 1/10 what Bobby Kennedy's book sold. And yet it was a #1 bestseller, #1 New York Times bestseller. Then you've got Jill Biden's book. That sold about 3% of the copies that the real Anthony Fauci sold. And that was a #1 bestseller. So in just every area, they've played this cultural war to convince us of things that we now know aren't true. And if you want to rebuild trust, you have to go after those things, continue to go after Dr. Fauci, continue to right the wrongs that have been caused. And, we probably need to come out really strongly before the midterms and think about how we compensate the people in this country who were injured or who were killed, the families of the people who were killed by the COVID vaccines, because we need that reconciliation. And it's an outrage that companies like Japan compensate people who were injured by the COVID vaccine 87% of the time. And in Thailand, it's 82% of the time. And even in Canada, and I'm the least, Canada is at the bottom of my list of countries in almost every area, but they compensate 22% of the people. And in the United States of America, you can be injured by a pharmaceutical product like a COVID vaccine that wasn't tested, that the government backed, that the media backed, that you were lied to about, and only 1% of people get compensated. And there's a limit on that of something like $3,500, even if somebody died. So think about that. We need to
hang on one second. Hang on one second. We're going to hold you through the break. We got Eric Metaxas also going to join us. Short break.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Times of turbulence. You need a still point in the turning world. You saw Philip Patrick kicked off the show today. So much going on. The Middle East war, what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, Persian Gulf, Japan bailout, Argentina bailout. What does it all mean? How does it make it all fit together? The Russian sanctions bill. Of course, they got time to do that. No time for Save America, but to put sanctions on the Russian, oh, yeah, we got time to do that. Birchgold.com/Bannon. End of the dollar empire. We don't want the dollar empire to end unless the American people decide on it. That's not what's happening. Find out why. 8 free installments, a 9th one coming. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Most importantly, you get to Philip Patrick and his team. They can talk you all through it. Tony, I'm gonna do the Make America Healthy Again. I want you to give that because you're the leader of that entity and a great supporter of Secretary Kennedy and everything we do on Make America Healthy Again. But we got a very special guest who's going to join us. Carved out some time this morning. Eric Metaxas. This audience has loved and supported this book since he's had no hits on Fox, and I'm not sure he had a hit on Newsmax, but it's really been Warm and other shows like that, and really going around, Eric doing the tough work, just going around, to these events, to book signings, to all of it, and shaking hands and selling books. Why is Barnes & Noble, in a time when the retail book business needs bestsellers, why do you go and give me photographs on the Union Square flagship in Manhattan, down there near Greenwich Village, Soho, all of it? They're so well-read. They're so smart. The New Yorkers always want to be on the new hot thing. We've got a book that 8 of the last 9 weeks has been on the New York Times bestsellers, including #2 week after week after week. You go in Barnes & Noble, you got all these ephemeral books nobody buys, including Jill Biden and all this crap, and yet you can't find in stock A Revolution by Eric Metaxas. Why is that? Why are they giving up cash flow? They need like mother's milk right now. Why are they giving up cash flow of a book that's written like a novel that people will take to the beach and get so immersed in it they won't understand when the tide comes up on their blanket? Why is that, Tony Lyons?
Because we are in the midst of a culture war. And what's happening is that, Bobby Kennedy writes The Real Anthony Fauci about, telling the truth about what's going on with public health. And he's called dangerous. And then Eric Metaxas writes just a brilliant book a historic, epic book, 640 pages on the revolution, on the glory of the brave people who fought the revolution. And that, I guess, makes him dangerous, to tell the truth about this country, to glorify what's great about this country. That's dangerous too. And, people want to read Eric's book. People want to read books about the giants who fought the revolution, fought for our freedom. And these people, these newspapers, these magazines, these privately owned bookstores all around the country, and Barnes and Noble, they want to censor everything that celebrates this country.
So hang on.
And they want to have books.
Let me
like
bring him a
Joe
text.
Biden's
Hang on.
book where there's nothing in it. So
it's ridiculous.
CNN
it's all lies. It's all lies. Hang on one second. Let me bring Metaxas in. Metaxas, is that true? Why are people pulled to read this book? Why are they recommending it to friends? Why are they buying it for young people in their life? What is it about revolution that makes it? It's about an event 250 years ago. People are so busy with what's going on in their own lives. Why are they reading a book about a story that's 250 years old, sir?
Well, I guess if you go to the Amazon page, and everybody's buying it off Amazon since it's nowhere to be found in Barnes & Noble. If you go to the Amazon page, honestly, as an author, as a writer, I am thrilled to death at the reviews on Amazon because, I don't solicit these. I mean, these are just anybody who reads the book. They say that they love the writing, that it's fun to read. Honestly, that as a writer, you can write an accurate book, a true book, but I have my own podcast. People send me books. And even if I want to read it, a lot of books aren't that readable because, it's hard. And so the stories in Revolution, I'm happy to say, practically tell themselves. There are amazing stories, funny stories. I mean, you've read it. These are funny stories. And here's a tip. The good guys win. Who doesn't want the good guys to win? This is a true story where the good guys win. The bad guys get their humiliating comeuppance, just as we hope Anthony Fauci will get his humiliating comeuppance, and he's one of many. It's good versus evil. And when good wins, we cheer, we rejoice. We need these stories, Steve, because we need to be inspired. We all know we've been through some dark times. The fact that you were at a federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut, are we making that up? No, that actually happened. There's all kinds of stuff that has happened to patriots across this country over the last 6+ years. We've been through hell. We're in a war. We're in a cultural war, but at heart, it's a spiritual war. There are people who hate God. They hate truth. They hate right. They love wrong. And I think that in order to fight the war that we're in, we need inspiration. We need to see those who fought that war and that they won and that it went well.
This is what, I'm glad you gave the spoiler alert. The spoiler alert is we won. But here's what's so amazing. And this is why just give me a comment on this. When you read the book, it's like a cliffhanger. There are dozens, if not hundreds of times that it looks so dark. It didn't look like we were going to win. In fact, the exact opposite. It looked like the bad guys are going to win. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that that's the nature of reality, right? That in the moment, if you said to George Washington, you're going to win, he would say, well, that's nice. But let me tell you, it's looking like hell today. And we've got to fight and suffer and men are being killed. And, and I think it's important for us. And I'd like to think that a good writer shows you that. It doesn't just make it seem like all, peaches and cream. They went through hell, and people through history have had to go through hell. But when you're fighting for the right cause, a sacred cause, that this is God's idea, you can fight with honor and dignity and joy, even though you're fighting, because you say, I have the privilege of fighting for something that's beautiful, that's God's idea. And I think that, the left, the secularist left, trying to gaslight us that we can have everything wonderful without God. You can have liberty and equality. No, you can't. You can't even have life without God. God creates life. My previous book was, you had me on about 4 years ago to talk about my book, Is Atheism Dead? That talks about science proving the existence of God. And this idea, we've all been taught in schools that life just emerges on planets. No, it doesn't. You cannot even have life without God. And I think we're getting to a moment in America where we're beginning to see that we've been gaslit, we've been fed this secularist, leftist view of the world, and especially of the American Revolution, as though we could have liberty and self-government. It just, came from the French Enlightenment. No, it actually did not. It comes from the Bible. And again, I didn't write my book about that, but it's everywhere in all the stories and all the figures. My favorite is John Adams. They understood this. And we have to understand this. This is not extra credit. This is not for history buffs. Every single American needs to understand this stuff because we're in simply a later battle of the same war now. It's good versus evil. It's secular elites who are cynical and corrupt. They're in love with power. They don't care how they get the power. And so, we want to see justice. And so I think we need to be inspired by these stories of the past. And I mean, I reread my own book sometimes and I laugh. Some of these stories are hilarious, which is why I put them in the book. I didn't make them funny. They were funny, but I said, I got to tell this story. I got to tell that story because there's something delightful about seeing the villains get their comeuppance and to see how that goes and to see their pomposity and their overconfidence and how every time, they just like they do with Trump, they underestimate their enemy. They sneer at their enemy. They think we're so much better. What a joke. And then we see how it comes out. And that's not just talking about the president's golf game. That's talking about everything else.
Yeah. You're in Myrtle Beach today. I want to know where people can go to get and meet Eric Metaxas and get a signed copy or shake your hand. Thank you for the book and find out maybe more about how you wrote it. Also, where do people go get the book today? Because come Sunday night, they're going to be recalibrating the New York Times bestseller list and we want to make it again. So where do people go to find you in the future when you leave Myrtle Beach, and where do people go to buy the book?
Yeah, well, I've got tons of events coming up. Sunday, I'm in Myrtle Beach. I'm doing like 3 events in Myrtle Beach. Next weekend, I'll be in San Jose, California. I'll be in Santa Barbara, and on it goes. If somebody wants to invite me, go to ericmetaxas.com and please invite me. But I really think that, if you just go to my website, it's all there. We keep adding events, and I'm going to be this fall. I'll be everywhere. I mean, it's like the Johnny Cash song. I've been everywhere. I don't know where I'm not going to be. I'm going to be everywhere this fall. But if people want to invite me to do more events, and there are some bookstores that are carrying the book, I have to tell you that thrills me. My relatives sent me a picture. RJ Julia bookstore in Madison, Connecticut has the book prominently displayed in Madison, Connecticut. So there are some bookstores that are actually displaying the bestsellers in the front of the store. And so, that gives me joy to think about that. So I should pop in there and do an impromptu book signing if I get up to Madison, Connecticut. But it is, we're in a battle. People don't want us to know that you need the God of the Bible to have liberty and self-government and to have America. And we need to know this. We need to know it. We need to rejoice in it. And, we need to bring the facts. And so I hope people will read my book and get encouraged, because we need encouragement right now.
It's a butchery. Good luck today and tomorrow in Myrtle Beach. We'll have you back on at the beginning of the week next week, and let's run through the tape to make the New York Times bestsellers by Sunday. Eric Metaxas, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Tony Lyons, you're the one that's got the courage to publish the War Room books. We got a bunch of books coming out. You've got the courage to print Revolution, and you've got the courage to do The Real Anthony Fauci, which I think we sold a couple 100,000 copies minimum here in the War Room and really fell in love with the movement that Bobby Kennedy's one of the leaders of. Where do people go for Skyhorse, for all the books, the War Room imprints there? You now dominate conservative book publishing. Kind of a long journey there. Where do people go? Where do people go in Maha? Where do they go for all of it?
Can I just say one last thing about Eric's book?
Sure.
There was a concerted effort to force people to buy Jill Biden's book. And that, it was in every newspaper in the country, front page articles, day after day. It was stacked up in every bookstore. Jill Biden's book was everywhere, but you could not force people to buy it. They just wouldn't do it. And then they were trying to prevent you from buying Eric Metaxas' just incredible book. I mean, this is a historic book that I think people are going to read in colleges. They're going to read everywhere for a generation. And yet, Jill Biden's book, with this kind of promotion, with the government behind it, with big companies behind it, with, like you said, the oligarchs behind it, it sells less than 1/3 of the copies of Eric Metaxas' Revolution. And what that tells you is that people are tired of being lied to, they're tired of being controlled, and they want to read real stories, real incredible stories of courage, endurance, bravery, and faith. And that is Eric Metaxas' Revolution. Just an incredible book. You can find Skyhorse books at skyhorsepublishing.com. And then everything about Maha is at mahaaction.org.
Tony Lyons, you become a real leader. It's so amazing to watch you do this. Just incredible. Thank you so much. Skyhorse, you're the publisher of the imprint of War Room. You've got all these great books, Revolution. Huge supporter of Bobby Kennedy and the Make America Healthy Again. The tip of the spear of that. Food is medicine. Tony Lyons, good on you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Gill, what a way to finish a Saturday. One of my favorites. The Warpath Coffee. Remember, he was a gunman. In the old days, Tage would be getting ready to deploy. Now, driving one of the greatest companies in America, next in the world.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Tage Gill, when the Navy SEAL, you get that call and they say, come to work. That's when you get ready to deploy. You did it, I don't know, 16 times, 18 times. You're in for 19 years. You would normally now be loading up the equipment, the material, and heading out to a hotspot, probably around Strait of Hormuz, maybe, Carg Island, maybe. Now you're running one of the great emerging growth companies in this country. What have you learned about yourself in that process?
I learned I could do other things besides shoot people and blow things up, right? So I learned how to be an entrepreneur. I learned how to sell things. I basically had to reinvent myself after I got out. You know, when I first got out, I was a contractor working for the government. I did that for 9 years after the military, and then you know that your options are limited, security, stuff like that, carrying guns, training. So I got it. I became an entrepreneur. I started selling T-shirts, the Hillary Clinton Kill My Friend shirts, and that was just a side hustle, a fun thing. And then I transitioned to the coffee in 2020, and then I basically gave up all the other stuff and just focused. You know, over the years, people have told me you got to just pick one thing and dedicate yourself to it. So that's what I did with the coffee. I'm just doing nothing but coffee now, and I'm loving it. And I sell coffee. I create coffee.
I got to tell this story. So Tage, after he became, he was Navy SEAL, then contractor with certain alphabetic agencies as a gunman. Then he ran security, his own security company, ran security for me for a number of years. And I get pitched by a lot of people. A lot of people come with an idea. I got an idea. And Tage came up with this idea to build, basically, since the Navy SEALs had the best equipment in the world, the best guns, the best underwater, suits and everything that you guys use, everything is top of the line because they pride themselves in being the best of the best. There's a lot of competition out there from other services and other nations, but the SEALs bring just such a battlefield valor. You said, I want to bring that to coffee. How did you do that? And tell me about this weekend. I want everybody that hasn't gone just to go to the site and read the reviews and check out what Tage has built with his own two hands, sir.
Yeah, I brought it to the coffee. When I was in the military, I didn't even know what good coffee was. You know, we're drinking the crappy Navy coffee and chugging it down with milk and sugar. And when I was in Kuwait, I had an amazing cup of coffee, and it was unlike any other coffee I drank. It was so smooth, and I just drank it straight black. So I knew I wanted something similar to that, and we started trying, working with different roasters and trying different beans from different origins, and I found a winner. And the coffee, we roast it on a perforated drum. We don't burn the beans, and it sounds easy, but most roasters burn their beans. So we use super fresh premium beans. And by doing that and roasting it the right way, you can drink our coffee straight black, which is not the norm in the coffee industry. which is crazy. You know, you figured everybody would do that, but most of these roasters, they're using dirt cheap beans, and then they burn them, and that's why you have to drink your coffee with milk and sugar and whatever all the other stuff. So that's what we did. We found the best way to roast. We use the best beans, and then by doing that, we have the best coffee, and you can drink it straight black, and it's absolutely incredible. We have over 19,000 5-star reviews, close to 20,000 with Amazon, and people love it. We have a cult following, and the coffee, it's amazing coffee, and you can drink it black and be healthy. You don't need put all that crap in your coffee. You know, when you go to Starbucks, you're basically drinking like a chocolate shake. You might as well be with ice cream in it. It's got so much sugar, so much syrup, and all that crap in it.
I want to tell the story. You know, I'm all like when Tage started, I'm like Henry Ford. You can do, you should do anything you do as long as you just make dark roast coffee or espresso. Tage, the scale, and I keep saying every time Tage comes to the idea, I go, Tage, nobody's going to buy decaf. Nobody's going to buy and they explode. Tell me about, I want the scale and the breadth of the product offering, sir.
Yeah, we've got, the flagship product is the Mariners Blend Dark Roast. Everybody wants dark roast. That's just the thing. Dark roast coffee is the most popular. And then we have breakfast blend, and we have the dark roast and breakfast blend in 2-pound, 12-ounce, 42-count K-cups. So you can run it in your K-cup machine. Then we have the espresso, and that one, it's so good you can drink it black, like black espresso, which is unheard of. And then we have decaf in K-cups and in ground and whole bean. And then we have the flavored coffees. The flavored coffee, we have dark chocolate, vanilla hazelnut, and then we have our Christmas coffee, which is the holiday blend. And we run that year round now because people were asking us year round, like, hey, when's the holiday blend gonna be back? So I was like, well, we'll just run it year round. And then we have maple bourbon and salted caramel. The salted caramel is crazy. That one's dangerous. It's addicting. It's amazing. And yeah, we have everything. And we have mugs, we have hats. We have hats for hunting season, orange hats. So ready to drink coffee in the can is coming next. We just finished our recipe, and now we're working with a co-packer trying to get that to market. So hopefully by the end of the year, I think we'll have the ready to drink coffee done. So look out for that.
Sir, one more time, where do people go?
You go to warpath.coffee, use promo code WARROOM. Warpath.coffee, use promo code WARROOM. It's 15% off all weekend.
Tage Gill, you have a great weekend. We love the company. Just go
Thank you,
over.
Steve.
Don't
You
take
too.
it from Tage or Steve. Just go to Warpath. Just go to warpath.coffee. Read the reviews. I want to thank our sponsor, Birch Gold. Want information when you get to Philip Patrick? Think how he started the show. The debt is the Damocles' sword over the nation, maybe over your own personal financial well-being. Still point in turning world. Birch Gold. Phone out. Bannon, Bannon 989898. Get the investment guide for investing in gold, precious metals, Age of Trump, but so much more information, all free, no obligation. And you can talk to Philip Patrick. What a Saturday. Wow. This thing was on fire. I'm up on Getter all weekend. We'll see you back here 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time Monday morning.